What's good, ladies and gents? Welcome back to MKO Pugilism, aka MKO Boxing, where we talk all things boxing. Remember to like and subscribe on YouTube and give me a follow on TikTok too. So let's get into this one. So last night we saw some crazy action, a bit of a mad fight, very eventful fight, quite an entertaining fight, quite a sloppy fight, and yeah, a fight where both guys sort of, I would say, kind of looked their age in there. And that was, of course, Derek Chisora versus Deontay Wilder. No belts on the line, no titles on the line, just pride and sort of names and, iconic status on the line, really. That was all it was. This was one for the people, for the fans. And I would say it definitely delivered. Deontay, the Bronze Bomber Wilder, won the fight on points. And for me, I'll say that, you know what, I'm quite impressed with that because Deontay Wilder going into this fight wasn't really favoured. Most people were picking against him. I was picking against him. I thought that going based on the performances that I'd seen from Derek Chisora recently against Otto Wallin and against other guys. He was on a winning streak going into this fight. I'd been to see his last fight live, and Derek Chisora still looked to have, not that much left, but he looked to have enough left to kind of wing away with the shots, be aggressive, and put people on their back foot. And he seemed to still have enough about him and enough ambition and aggression and forward momentum to be able to be beating Deontay Wilder at this stage, because from what we'd seen going into this fight of Deontay Wilder looked like he was sort of unable to pull the trigger, unable to throw that famous right hand. So he looked, for all intents and purposes, shot going into this fight. There were no real good indicators or good performances from Deontay Wilder going into this that would make anyone pick him. So great, for him that he was able to win this, because he really upset the odds, and especially winning it on points was quite an impressive method of victory. But the fight went in such a way where Chisora was sort of ahead. I would think it was very close in the first, let's say, 2-3 rounds. The opening couple of rounds, the fight was close. I thought they were quite even. Maybe you could have Chisora ahead in after the first 3, and then Deontay Wilder sort of began to find his range, began to land the right hand, but there wasn't all that much activity from Deontay Wilder. But his work looked a bit sharper and a bit, the better shots were sort of coming from Deontay Wilder. And, as we got to the mid-rounds, he began to line Derek Chisora up, and he impressed me because he showed a bit more punch variety in this fight. Deontay Wilder, he looked a bit uncomfortable with the pace, but he showed a good punch variety, threw some good uppercuts in there, which were a good shot that worked well against Chisora. And Chisora, for his part, he was his normal aggressive, marauding self, but I think the weight that he came in at probably played a part, because he did look, even by his standards, he looked very slow, very sluggish, and he looked tired after the first 2 rounds, really, Derek Chisora. But as he always does, he fought on, and he's got the mentality to keep going. And yeah, the fight more swung in Deontay Wilder's favor after the first sort of 3 rounds. He started taking over, landing the better shots, but then you'd always get Derek Chisora coming in, hook into the body, hook into the head, throwing these big overhand rights, and it kind of swung back and forth quite a lot as we got from the mid rounds into the latter stages of the fight. And there were there was a point deduction for Deontay Wilder, which I thought probably a bit harsh there. And there was even another weird period in the fight moment where Derek Chisora was like pointing to his eye and looking for a break in the action and sort of putting his arms on the ropes, and the referee let him get away with that, which I would say that was unfair. That was that was uncalled for. The referee should have just said, well, you got to fight on it, whatever you're talking about, you can deal with that after the round. But the referee let him take that pause there. And I think the point deduction for Wilder sort of pushing Derek Chisora, I thought that was a bit much. But then there was Derek Chisora hitting Wilder, dropping what I saw as a knockdown, and I don't think they gave it. I heard the count going on, but the referee wasn't counting with it, so that knockdown by Chisora didn't score. But then there was other controversial knockdowns as we got into the latter rounds, where you had Wilder laying into Chisora, and then Chisora sort of bobbing, weaving about, and then sort of bundling, sort of falling through the ropes. And there wasn't a punch that landed when he fell through the ropes one of the times he did, and then that was counted as a knockdown against Chisora, which I thought wasn't right, because there wasn't a punch that landed there, so I don't see how that's a knockdown. So there was a couple of those sort of messy knockdowns scored against Derek Chisora, but to his credit, he just kept getting up. He was fighting away, bundling away. I thought he'd done quite well, I think, in sort of the 12th round, in the last round of the fight, and sort of tried to claw it back. And yeah, it's one of those where I think it was relatively close. Deontay Wilder looked, of the two of them, the fresher, and his work was probably a bit better quality. So I think it's one of those decisions where you can't really grumble, you can't complain. I think Deontay Wilder's was won it, the right man won it. But I think had Chisora been given the knockdown that I think he deserved, then for me it probably would have made it a draw. But as it stands, Deontay Wilder won it, and he done some good work in there. He didn't quite roll back the years, but you could see he had a bit of his confidence left, and he was boxing all right, boxing quite well, very well by his recent performances. This is the best we've seen of Deontay Wilder in quite some time. But having said that, obviously, this was against a very old Derek Chisora, a Derek Chisora who didn't have much left. So you have to put the performance in perspective. And after the fight, he walked past Joshua, did Wilder, spotted Joshua, dapped him up, as they say in the States, and said, let's do it. Yeah, let's do it. And then he said Joshua's scared and but I think, it's one of them. As far as what's next, Derek Chisora, he's got to retire now. He's got nothing left really to give, and he's given his everything to the sport. We appreciate him as British boxing fans, and he's given us great fights over the years. So we salute Derek Chisora. Great career by him, no disgrace, no shame. He fought his heart out, and he never quit. He never gave up. He always had a positive attitude and always gave it his all. And as far as Deontay Wilder's concerned, I think really for him, he could retire on that too, because I don't, as much as yes, he's won this fight, I don't think he's really got anything enough left to sort of trouble anyone in the top 10, top 15 in the heavyweight rankings. I think they'd pretty much everyone would beat him, because yes, he done well there, but that's Derek Chisora. I did think Chisora would win going in, because Wilder hardly threw a punch in his last fights. But I think you put that Wilder in with even a Joshua's sort of on the rebuild job, but I think you put him in there against Joshua beats him. I think Joshua beats him. Joshua probably takes him out, because he's fresher than Wilder. He is, obviously came off that loss to Daniel Dubois, but Wilder's not Daniel Dubois, and I think at this point, I'd say, it's one of those fights that it would capture the imagination. It would sell out an arena or maybe even a stadium, Joshua versus Wilder, because it's one of those things that it's been talked about for so many years. So if they finally do it, a lot of people will want to see it. And Wilder does have a fan base that's almost like a cult-like fan base, where they will, there's a lot of people that really believe in him and believe in what he does. So I think, if anything, next it could be, why not? Joshua versus Wilder, and then Joshua versus Fury if Joshua wins. So that's what I think. But let me know your thoughts on this in the comment section below. Until next time, it's MK Boxing, over and out.